Back in 2008, a very strange video would pop up on YouTube, seemingly to show some older pictures of an alien corpse out in the snow. The channel itself would only ever upload this content and nothing else, eventually going dark. Although the photos did gain a little bit of attention, no one would ever fully investigate this bizarre case. Now, over 17 years later, let's take a look at what exactly happened with this largely unknown video and where anything like an investigation left off at. This footage is mostly comprised of 10 different photos which appear to show an alien being partially frozen in the Canadian wilderness. So let's just start this video off by looking at each photo in the order they were originally presented in. Although the alien body is the main point of the video, for a second or two before the photos we can see what looks to be a hand-drawn depiction of aliens shown in an open book. Then for just a few frames we see what looks to be a title screen before it starts to zoom in on what is possibly a map of the Rivière-Rouge area. By 3 seconds in, we see an alien lying face up in the snow with one, possibly two people inspecting it. It looks very much like aliens we've heard of in other cases, showing a fairly large head, an almost fish-shaped mouth with no lips, a very small nose, and black eyes. In the next picture, we see the same creature from behind, seemingly hoisted up into the air by a branch held by a person on each side. Here we see that the creature's body structure does look very similar to a human's, while also having some noticeable differences, such as the joints in the arms as well as the three-fingered hands. The next picture looks to be taken immediately after the last and seems to show the same scene from a different angle. Now we can tell just how small the creature really is, with it looking to only be around 3 feet tall. You can also tell that at least 3 or 4 people are now there with the body. 2 on the left, 1 on the right, and probably a camera person. In the next photo, we seem to be viewing the alien from a front angle, but from a bit further away, with a bit of falling snow obstructing the whole view. Instead of branches, it appears that a rope is now strung under each arm. The next photo is nearly the same, but from a closer angle. Here we can see how odd the arms really look, appearing to be much longer and more jointed than a human's would be. These photos don't seem to necessarily be in order, as the next clip looks to show the men placing the alien body on the rope by using the branches. The body does not seem to be frozen completely as the head is leaned another direction, but at the same time we can see the snow building up on the shoulder since they raised it upright. The next clip appears to be taken shortly after the last. The alien is in the same position, but fully on the rope. The man with the flashlight now seems to be inspecting it as well. We now see a fairly clear front shot of this alien body with a branch laying across its chest. And now it's easier to see the large, dark, almond-shaped eyes, the fairly flat nose, and the almost slit in the skin mouth. The neck, like in many cases, looks quite small and almost incapable of supporting a large head like that. The camera person seems to step to the side, showing nearly the same photo as earlier, but now also the lower part of the body as well. And here we can see that there are some strange patterns present on the skin, which many think are something like bandages, while others believe it to be something called skin slippage. And this is when the different layers of skin start to separate, and it just happens naturally after death when a body starts to decay. It is also notable that, like in many other cases involving extraterrestrials, they do not appear to have exterior genitals, leaving no clear way to determine if it was a male or female. However, this next photo is really bad quality, and it's a struggle to even tell what exactly is shown. It seems that we're still looking at the creature on the ground, but not much more can be made out. It then pans around to show at least 4 people now examining this being, with a 5th probably using the camera. This seems to be the last photo as well, as the next part of the video just shows the first picture again, but seems to be a little more zoomed in. Right after this, a strange, ancient-looking glyph would show up on the screen before it all ended. This video, originally published in 2008, seems to be the only thing ever uploaded to a Strange's Videos channel. The original title for the video, which was in French, translates to Discovery of a Grey, quote, Extraterrestrial, Body/Discovery, quote, Alien, Short Grey Body, Quebec, 1992. And later on, this creator would say that the strange title was trying to take advantage of how search engines worked back in that day. And we also get a story to go along with all this, with the Strange Videos, or EV for short, filling out the entire description and then even adding more in the comments below it. He starts off by explaining how he came across the footage to begin with, writing that the original had been shown to him back in 1992 when he was living in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. One winter day, one of his roommate's friends came over to their apartment with some very bizarre pictures. They would be shown an apparently lifeless creature of unknown origin, which a Strange Videos would refer to as an extraterrestrial biological entity, or EBE. Continuing, they say that it had been found by one or two people on a snowmobile in a field or a woodland just off the road. After seeing these pictures, Evie and his roommate began to ask where this friend had even gotten them to begin with. They would be told that he had gotten this tape from his cousin who lived in the Rivière-Rouge area. The cousin, as well as one of the cousin's friends, were in the local snowmobile club. They were out riding around one day when they came across the partially frozen alien body in the snow. One of them immediately went to go get a camera, with Evie guessing that it may have been a 35mm. He also points out that only one snowmobile club member can be seen in the photos, leading them to speculate that the other must have been holding the camera, as there's no proof of a second member. During this photo shoot, a couple of other witnesses would show up by car and could be seen with the cigarettes in their mouths during some of the scenes. And they were possibly informed by the man that went to go get the camera. He would also be told that the men were somewhat reluctant to touch the body themselves, but Evie only had guesses as to why. He wondered if they were afraid of leaving their fingerprints or possibly even contracting some dangerous disease. He even suggests that it may have smelled bad at this point, as the body didn't appear to be completely frozen and may have been decaying. The men instead used a rope or cable and a branch to hoist the body up into the air for a better look, and then attached it to some nearby trees. With Evie and his roommate now very intrigued by these pictures and story, they would quickly ask the friend about what ended up happening to the alien body afterwards. They were told that the witnesses simply didn't realize how important of a find this was, and since it was already getting quite late, they just left the body on the rope. None of them dared to touch it any more than they had to, and they would have to touch it quite a bit to bring it back. Apparently the next day, they did try to go out and find it once again, but the body had vanished, with the men assuming that a wild animal must have gotten a hold of it. And after hearing all this, Evie wasn't really surprised, writing that errors like this often come from observers without any scientific experience. They then asked the friend what he planned to do with these photos now. He told them that they were going to try to meet ufologists in order to solve this mystery for good. And then, quickly before the friend left the apartment, Evie quickly ran to get his VHS camcorder and filmed each photo one by one. Evie, continuing, wrote that his friend would call him back a few weeks later after they had gone to show a ufologist named Claude McDuff these photos. McDuff apparently told them that this was not the first time he had seen photos of an entity like this, but he also advised them that they shouldn't bother trying to make money off of it or waste their time taking it public. McDuff said that they would certainly be discredited and just ridiculed in the end. He and his friend were pretty surprised by this answer, but they would end up taking his advice, since they didn't really want to be considered crazy. Evie then explained that he would find out that McDuff used to believe in UFOs until he became unsatisfied with the lack of proof and evidence in most cases. He then joined the Quebec Skeptics in the early 1980s, where he would stay for the rest of his life. And Evie's information here is actually true, and his writings pretty closely match the Wikipedia entry for McDuff. But after learning more about the former ufologist, Evie would explain that he was not surprised that no investigation was performed. Evie wrote, "It's a pity, because it ruined an important advance that we could have had in the field." Evie, his roommate, and their friend would then just decide to keep the whole thing a secret between them, only showing it off to a few friends and family members over the years. They now believe that they really would be laughed at if they showed these photos to anyone in the public again. But 17 years later, in 2008, Evie would get the idea to upload these videos to YouTube anonymously in order to maybe get some answers about these pictures. They say that they didn't have the necessary equipment to turn a VHS tape into a digital file, so he simply grabbed a camera and recorded his old TV as it played the VHS tape. After uploading it, he claims that it started to take off pretty quickly, and was even discussed by a large number of ufology websites at that time. On a side note, looking into this case more recently, I personally couldn't find any evidence of this. I really couldn't find any sites talking about it hardly at all. And the few articles I did find is pretty much the information I'm giving you now, the same information that a trained videos gave in the description of his video, and in the comments. He would even give an example of an article that was supposedly written about him, but I couldn't find this and he wouldn't link to it either. He would even give out his email and hope that witnesses or investigators would contact him about these strange pictures. And then soon after this, he claims to have been contacted by a local journalist from the Rivière-Rouge area, who would then write an article about all this. He even said that they stayed in contact for a little while afterwards in case witnesses came forward, but it seems that none ever did. Seeming to update the comments over time, this entry had multiple different dates written down. In January 2009, he decided to try to take it to an investigator himself, but says he was turned away. Since he only had a VHS tape and not the original photos, nobody seemed to want to touch it. And then nothing else significant would happen until after 2013, when he would be contacted by Mr. Garcia, wanting Evie to come in for an interview on a show called Third Millennium. And for those of you that don't know, this is actually a TV show featuring Jaime Maussan, although he really wasn't quite as well known outside of Mexico at that time. And Evie would actually decline this offer for the interview as he insisted on remaining anonymous. He would also get some better computer equipment around this time and was finally able to upload a version of the VHS tape. It was slightly better quality than the original, but it would never receive the same amount of attention. Deciding to move on with his life, he just put the whole thing to the side for the moment. And it seems that he didn't check the channel email for at least another 3 years. At that point in 2016, he had received one more inquest from a man at Garpen Ufology, an organization that investigates extraterrestrials in Quebec, dated in 2014. But since EV largely lost interest in the photos, and it had already been 2 years since the email, he decided not to respond. He would, however, add a bit more to the comments below the video. Over the years, more people slowly got more interested in the video as well. At this point, he states that the original video had surpassed 400,000 views, and he thought that with other platforms included, that number must be above 1 million. Around this time, he would notice that another YouTuber named NewBeat2012 would make a video based off of EVs. This would make a comparison between the aliens and the human muscle structure, as well as a few other points. Evie himself would even comment the details were indeed very human-like, and praise the user for casting doubt on the hypothesis that this was all just a simple dummy. They then agree with and reiterate many of the points that NewBeat2012 made in their video, adding, in short, it was an excellent work of investigation. In this now nearly lost video, we can see many comparisons made between the extraterrestrial and the human muscle structure. And although at first glance these details do seem to be visible, when looking harder you can see that something is off. Many would point out that these muscles aren't actually as human-like as it seems, and many of them don't end and connect where we would expect them to. But since it is possible that these are aliens we're looking at, making these comparisons to begin with can be seen as strange, with many pointing out that nothing says aliens have to look or function like humans do anyway. NewBeat2012's video did bring a bit of life back into this case, but it was fairly short-lived. The channel now no longer exists, and the previously mentioned video is now extremely hard to find, but the reason for this is just hard to know. The next update from Trained Videos would be made sometime after November 2017, when he would notice a very similar video floating around what people were calling the dark web. It was his exact same video, but with the title and description changed. This version was called EBE 1992 Eiger, and even had its own story to go with it. This uploader, UFO Today, would claim that they came across this file on a server on the dark web, with no details other than the title. They continued, saying that the photos appeared to show an alien life form in a cold environment, and it appears that someone in Eiger, Switzerland made this video with little time during a likely clandestine operation. UFO Today ended this description with, "Could this be a major discovery that wasn't made public?" Most people believe that they must be referring to the Eiger Mountains in the Burmese Alps. It even has a trail that is pretty frequently hiked and is one of the more photographed mountains in the area. But this made people begin to suspect that something was off, when no one else had ever heard of an alien sighting like this on a pretty popular trail. EV, assuming that this was all just an attempt to make money on YouTube, quickly got a hold of his old roommate, who had actually become a ufologist himself. The two then tried to work together on funneling all of these new viewers back to the original video. The Copycat video would end up racking up about 250,000 views before the channel in video would also be deleted from YouTube altogether. EV would then take another break from his channel, and it seems that he didn't return till around 2020 when he adds more to the comments. The name would also be changed around this time to Photos Discovery Small Gray, Rivière-Rouge, Annonciation, Quebec, 1992. And unfortunately, the original video didn't seem to grow a whole lot during this time, and maybe even grew in negative comments. Now he was actually becoming a bit hurt by the way people were talking about him in the video. EV says that there are way too many critics of unexplained phenomenon, adding, "And these critics are often armed with eminent diplomas, so that people will be inclined to believe only them, preferring to ridicule honest witnesses." He goes on to take his anger out on skeptics and even writes down a quote from an investigative journalist that largely says the same thing EV just wrote a moment before. He continues to write that he too honestly thought that it may have been a mannequin for the longest time and didn't change his mind about it until watching the New Beat 2012 video comparison. Now he also wonders how much a detailed alien mannequin would have cost back in the 90s, and what people would have even used it for besides producing a hoax. EV also wonders if it could be connected to other UFO sightings in the area, or possibly other cases further away. The best match he would ever find for the alien would be on the cover of the book EBE, Red Alert, written by the famous French ufologist Jim Gouet. And this book came out just 2 years before these pictures were first shown to EV, and he feels like that the cover may show the exact same type of extraterrestrial. The final comment EV would make would read, "So here it is, an investigative book about the Rivière-Rouge mystery is currently being written." But since then, he seems to have gone dark, with nothing else ever being posted on this channel. Unfortunately, besides the information that EV gives us himself, there really just isn't that much about this case out there. Some hobby researchers have tried to look into it a little more, but not much progress has really been made over the years. All of this just leads people to speculate on the few details that we can make out in the clips, and they just want to know if they can tell us anything more, if anything at all. In the very beginning of this video, we see what looks like a book open to a drawing of some gray aliens. Tracking it down, we easily find that it's from a very well-known Charles Moody case, and was originally drawn in 1975, but we don't know what book exactly is showing this picture. Right after this, we have the title screen, which translated from French means Winter 92, the Annunciation. And apparently, this is a specific area of Quebec where the town of Rivière-Rouge resides. In the middle of the original video, it does seem like you can see the reflection of a man filming, a detail not present in the second video, which leads many to believe that he was at least being truthful on how it was filmed and uploaded. Then, during the end of the film, we can see a few frames of a strange glyph. When people around the internet started to look into this, they would most easily find it on the cover of one of Eric von Daniken's books, Chariots of the Gods. But it's a bit unclear where the image originally came from before that. Now, none of this really adds up to much extra information about the photos, but it does lead to some more speculations. It could be possible that EV was already into UFOs and had some documentary about them on a VHS tape. Since they were already in a rush, they didn't bother finding a blank tape and simply filmed over whatever program was already on there. But it also leads many to believe that it may have just been a strange video made by a nearby Montreal film student. Others in the comments seem to agree with this statement too, and many others even say that there was a short film about aliens shown during the Montreal Film Festival in the 90s. and a few claim that the entire film was available on YouTube, and apparently after the alien body was found, it was taken back to a house where the witnesses were assaulted and abducted. They say that it was an hour-long movie and was very popular for many years before it mysteriously got taken down. But when asked for proof of this, no one was ever able to find a good link or the supposed film at all. No other details were ever provided about it either, so trying to search for it is nearly impossible. The most anyone would add is the comment that it seemed very low budget, but also very creepy. Interestingly though, some would counter that statement, saying that they used to go to these festivals back in that day and don't remember ever seeing a film resembling the Rivière-Rouge video. Others think that the film never actually got released and only pictures were left over, and these eventually got turned into a found footage type of thing many years later. There's also the theory that it could be from a fringe Quebec TV show called Alter Ego, and this was a UFO talk show that would invite guests on to discuss some of their encounters or investigations. This show aired from the 80s to 90s and often showed photos and videos from witnesses. It seems that McDuff was even on one episode, but as of now it appears to be lost media. It is possible that this all originated from a very old VHS recording of this show, which would also explain the other images we see before and after the pictures of the alien. And skeptics would also try to find examples of that specific alien doll, but none found would ever prove to be a really good match. Some say that it looks like an X-Files prop, while others say that it looks like the aliens from Encounters of the Third Kind. Others, just trying to find any details they could, would even zoom in on the patches on the suits that some of the witnesses were wearing. There were a few similar patches that were found, but a good match was never really discovered. And it is sort of interesting that the closest patch anyone did find to a match was actually from a Rivière-Rouge recreational area, and that might just add a little bit more credibility to the case. The flashlights being held do match the time frame, but it's odd that they don't seem to be using them as the whole area appears to be lit up already. And with all this said, there isn't actually anything in these photos that can prove that it was from '92 anyway. What may be snowmobiles or cars in the backgrounds are much too blurry to make out a make or model. This means that it really could have been made in 2008, so it is possible that everyone was looking for a look-alike alien doll from the wrong time period. Many also argue about the statement that these photos were recorded with a video camera. It's been pointed out that in none of these scenes we can see the edge of a photo. There's also a lot of zooming and panning going on, which seems odd when you consider the size of a camera and the size of a typical photograph in the 90s. Cameras were usually quite large and photos were only about 4 or 5 inches wide. For us to never see an edge with that much panning, some speculate that the images would need to be nearly poster-sized, something you think Evie would have mentioned. What's even stranger is that when you look closely at the different videos, you can see that the photos are actually at different zoom levels. And this is when the second video is supposed to be the exact same thing, just a better quality, which means that he had to have done some kind of editing after uploading it onto his computer. Looking more into this, you can even see that the banner for his channel is very similar too, appearing to be cut from a larger version of one of the pictures seen in both versions of the video. So this is just more proof that the video was cropped down in size before he put it onto YouTube. The original was slightly more zoomed out, actually has TV scan lines that some say were there just to add to the found footage look, while the newer version is a bit more zoomed in and therefore equally bad in quality even without the scan lines. This leads many to say that tactics like this are used to degrade the visibility, making it harder to see the details of a hoax. But some say that even if it was a hoax, that doesn't necessarily mean that Evie was in on it, so his part of the story may be true at least. Overall, many compare the Rivière-Rouge case to a couple of others. Skeptics usually point to the case of the Siberian alien, where a couple of students found a supposed crash site in an alien body in the snow. Although at first glance the alien does look fairly interesting, it's pretty easy to point out the faults. It wouldn't take long for the two students to admit that it was a hoax, saying that they made the fake creature out of chicken skin, stale bread, and modeling clay. On the other hand, believers often point to the Skinny Bob videos, which were uploaded in 2011 by a man named Ivan. Alien beings shown in both Evie's video and in the Skinny Bob video look very similar, and many even speculate that they could be the same kind of extraterrestrial species. The YouTube channels themselves were pretty similar too, with only the found alien footage ever being posted. Other believers compare the alien in the photos to a memo of a description of an ET made by FBI Special Agent Guy Hoddle. And in this document, he describes crashed craft and alien bodies recovered in New Mexico. It read, "Each body was bandaged in a manner similar to blackout suits used by speed flyers and test pilots. This leads some to speculate that the strange bandage-looking items on the alien's skin were similar to what was seen in New Mexico and could have been leftovers from a type of flight suit. Others look at Evie's favorite video lists and wonder if his video could have been inspired by some of those. Many of these favorites include now debunked cases of found alien bodies, even including the above-mentioned Siberian alien in the snow. Other favorites, such as the Filiberto Caproni encounter in 1993, are also very similar, with this man taking 6 Polaroids of a supposed alien creature and then uploading a video of them in 2006. Just after viewing the original video once, many say that the alien beings remind them of the ones supposedly found in Peru, which is interesting because the Peruvian aliens are also featured in another video on its favorites list. In the end, maybe it's possible that the reason we've never heard more about these photos is because of McDuff's advice. Whether or not they were fake, having a major ufologist tell you not to bother showing these photos to anyone may just kill any motivation an average person would have to continue the investigation. And if they were real, then they might just be too afraid of the negative attention involved with coming forward with this sort of material. And either way, the people involved may have just decided to cut their losses and move on with their lives. But unfortunately, Claude McDuff did die in 2001, so we have no way of corroborating his side of the story. In an attempt to get more details on this case, I even tried to contact Strange Videos myself, but it seems that the old email address no longer works. The first video he uploaded has even been copyright claimed by some random tiny channel. And I mean, this isn't all that uncommon for YouTube scammers, but this does seem to have happened sometime last year. It seems that Evie hasn't even been online since then, or at least hasn't bothered to fight the claim at all. Maybe they've become tired of trying to find any answers on this case altogether. And now the only way to even view the original is using the Internet Archive. It's quite unlikely that this was put on YouTube solely for money either, as he only ever uploaded the 2 versions of this video, and they were many years apart. Normally, you have to stay active to keep your channel monetized, and it just doesn't seem like this channel would have ever been eligible. And really, many find it strange that no one has ever tried to take credit for the original photos. But as this case gets older, the details start to become more and more blurred. So if anyone out there has any more information to add to this case, be sure to let us know before it fades from the internet completely. Just a side note, while researching this case, many people would say that the images were fake simply because the creature had butt cheeks. Is it well known that aliens don't? Because I personally haven't come across that detail in any other case yet. So be sure to leave a comment about this down below or just about anything else in the case. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and even subscribe if you like this type of content. And if you want another video to watch after this, I definitely suggest the Skinny Bob video. It's pretty similar to this. I'll also mention that you can listen to this show in podcast form as well, and that's available on most platforms. For anyone wanting to show their support, be sure to check out my channel membership or my Patreon page where you can get these videos early and ad-free. And believe me, I appreciate all the support I can get. My channel's still small and growing. With that said, extra shout out to my current members. This was Matt, and I want to believe.